Prize on International Relations is named in honor of Hedley Bull and awards a book which makes a substantial and original contribution to theory and empirical studies in any field of international relations. The prize is open to social science scholars. Eligible nominations are reviewed by a jury, which is composed as follows. Carmela Lutmar from University of Haifa, from the Standing Group of International Relations, Marina Enke from Hertie School in Berlin, representing Standing Group on International Relations, Gezim Visoka, Dublin City University from Standing Group on Critical Peace and Conflict Studies, Raphael Cohen Almagor, University of Hull, representing Standing Group of Human Rights and Transitional Justice, and James Pattison from University of Manchester, representing the Standing Group on International Political Theory, and myself. The jury has received a total of 18 books, and each book has been ranked for originality, methodology and theoretical framework, analysis, style of presentation, scope and bibliography, and literature review. So based on these criteria, the jury has decided that the prize is awarded to the book Market Power Politics, War Institutions and Strategic Delay in War Politics by Stephen Gent and Mark Crescenzi, published by Oxford University Press in 2021. Gent and Crescenzi's work deepened the reasons why territorial claims and conflicts between states are impacted and driven by economic competition. The book is based on a solid and original theoretical framework and an accurate empirical analysis built on 3 relevant case studies: the Persian Gulf War in the 1990s, Russian troubled relations with some of its neighbors, such as Georgia and Ukraine in the previous decade, which results in an extremely timely anticipation of the current war, and Chinese frictions with other states in the East and South China Seas over the last 30 years. The book has been praised as a combination of a new theoretical framework for analyzing how the pursuit of market power will delay cooperation between states, bringing to aggressive territorial expansion and empirical case studies. The theoretical model under which the book is built stems from a variety of literatures within the field of international relations, conflict management and security studies, international organization, and international political economy. The book inspires a set of visions which are extremely timely and wide-ranging. The jury also praised the author's ability to address a wide readership, from experienced scholars and practitioners to students of basic international relations courses, offering room for several policy implications. And now I give the floor to Michela Mattes for a deeper introduction of the book.
My name is Michela Mattes, and I'm an associate professor at the University of California, Berkeley. And so it was my distinct pleasure to nominate this great book by Stephen Gent and Mark Crescenzi for the Hedley Bull Award. And so it was a distinct pleasure because I've also been very familiar with Stephen's and Mark's work for a long time, and actually know them and have known them for a long time. So in particular, I've been a big admirer of Stephen's work on the role of third parties in international conflict and in civil war, and Mark's work on reputation and learning, which has actually influenced some of my work as well. So when I heard that they were joining forces on this book project, I was really excited, right? Because it was going to be a great product, and also because it was going to be on territorial conflict, which is something that I'd had worked on as well. So I was very pleased then that I actually got a chance to read the product earlier than most people, because I was a reviewer for the book for Oxford University Press. And so there are a couple of things that really stood out to me about this book. The first one is that, in a very dense area, much studied by international relations scholars, Stephen and Mark were still able to make an original theoretical contribution by outlining this new mechanism of how territorial conflict might emerge or be aggravated. And in particular, that's of course this argument they formulate that in certain markets, incentives are created for states to want their firms to be able to set prices. And in order to be able to do so, these states have to control territory, either land-based or sea-based territory. And so that this creates then these territorial conflicts, right? So this is a novel theoretical mechanism. The second thing that stood out to me is that this argument runs counter what I would say is sort of a dominant approach to thinking about interdependence and trade and its relationship to peace, which is, of course, the liberal peace theories, which argues that trade and interdependence are a force for peace. And what Stephen and Mark are showing in their book is that that's not necessarily so, that interdependence can create these incentives for market competition, which then lead to these territorial disputes. So parallel to that, there's a third contribution here, where Mark and Stephen then take on kind of the argument that the institutionalization and judicialization of the international system has been a force for peace, which may be true in many ways, but it's also exactly the strength of international law and international courts that leads some states to dodge their authority and to instead use a different approach to try to fulfill their territorial aspirations. And so this leads to the fourth contribution, which is that Stephen and Mark then point out that exactly when states want to dodge courts is that they choose this strategy of gray zones or strategic delay. And this is a really interesting treatment of something that I think policymakers have thought a lot about, but there's very little, or to my knowledge, I think no scientific rigorous treatment of these concepts. And so we see this sort of different path outlined really nicely in this book. And then the fifth point I was going to make, which is sort of different than what I wrote in my nomination, because the world has sadly changed since then, right, is that the book is also really important from a contemporary perspective. We think about Russia's war of aggression against the Ukraine, right? So this provides a framework to think about this as well. And so overall, what I think is really strong in this book is that it essentially formulates this novel theoretical argument by pulling together different threads of literature and sort of showing how the conclusions of these literatures need to be modified in some way. And then at the same time, they shed light on a phenomena, strategic delay and gray zones that haven't really been considered very much. And so, it seems to me that the book was very deserving of the Hedley Bull Award. And as Daniela, already set the criteria were that the book has to make a substantial and original contribution to the theory and or empirical studies in the field. And I think Market Power Politics clearly does so. So I was happy to nominate the book, and I was delighted, of course, that Stephen and Mark won. So many congratulations, Stephen and Mark.
Hi, I'm Stephen Gent from the University of North Carolina, and I would like to thank the ECPR, Professor Herrera, and the rest of the award jury for selecting our book for the 2022 Hedley Bull Prize. We'd also like to thank Michaela for our nomination letter. This is truly an honor. It is particularly gratifying to be recognized by a broad community of scholars coming from many different perspectives across the field of international relations. In our profession, where we're often incentivized to be highly specialized, we aim to write a book that cuts across many of the artificial boundaries in our field. We wanted to speak to scholars across the field of international relations, from conflict and security studies to international organizations, institutions, and law to international political economy. At the same time, we wanted to write a book that would speak to practitioners and be accessible to a wide audience. So it means a lot to be recognized in this way. Market power politics aims to solve a puzzle that characterizes our contemporary international environment. Despite the establishment of norms of territorial integrity, we see an increase in territorial aggression by major powers like Russia and China. At the same time, the nature of these expansionist activities varies. While sometimes we see old-fashioned land grabs through war, like Iraq's invasion of Kuwait or Russia's current invasion of Ukraine, often states prefer to pursue what we call strategic delay. By delaying the resolution of a territorial dispute, states can pursue so-called gray zone activities short of war to achieve their goals more gradually. This epitomizes China's strategy in the South and East China Seas. To understand both the decision of states to expand as well as the choice of strategies they use, Mark and I argue that you need to understand both the motivations and the constraints that states face. A key expansionist motivation that we identify is market power, which is the ability of a state's firms to set prices for key goods. On the other hand, economic interdependence, international institutions can potentially act as constraints that put brakes on taking more aggressive actions. Mark and I argue that the specific configuration of motivation and constraints is going to influence the strategies that states pursue in a given situation. When there is market power motivation without constraints, states will be more likely to turn to war to achieve their goals. On the other extreme, the presence of both economic and institutional constraints can provide incentives for states to settle their disputes peacefully. It is in between these two extremes, when there's a high level of economic interdependence, but a lack of compatible institutional solutions, the states will turn to strategic delay to pursue their market power goals gradually. In the book, we explore this process in 3 cases: Iraq's pursuit of market power in the oil market, leading to its invasion of Kuwait, Russia's efforts to corner the European gas market and its aggression in Ukraine and Georgia, and China's dominance of the rare earths market and its expansionist activities in the South and East China Seas. This book grew out of a desire to address puzzles that arose from our previous research. In his work, Mark looked at the effect of economic interdependence on conflict and saw that it's more complex than we typically assume. In work that I did with Meg Shannon, we found that institutions can be effective mechanisms to resolve territorial and maritime disputes, but that states are often reluctant to use them. Through our discussions, we realized that each of us had one piece of a bigger puzzle, and if we put them together, we could better understand the patterns that we were seeing in international relations. We started off with a conference paper applying our ideas to explain China's activities in the South and East China Seas. But we quickly realized that to fully develop and articulate our theory would require a book-length project. As we revised and honed our argument, we found that we needed to engage with and draw from a wide range of literatures in international relations and political economy. Also, while most of our previous research tends to focus on large N or formal methods, we recognized that a qualitative process tracing approach was the only way to go with this project. As we delved into the cases, we also realized that we needed to understand the practical aspects of commodity markets that we had little prior experience with. This required me to delve into the inner workings of the European gas market, while Mark took a deep dive into the rare earths market. In the end, it took us about 6 years to put it all together, but we think that it was worth it in the end. I'd like to thank the ECPR again for this award, and I turn it now over to Mark, who will talk a little bit more about our book.
Thank you, Stephen. And I want to start by just reiterating his thanks to the committee and to Michaela. We're just so thrilled to hear that this book is being received in this way. When we first sat down over a cup of coffee to try and talk about our own research independently, which frankly was a little bit stuck, I never envisioned, as we came out of that meeting, realizing that we needed to combine forces and seek a broader addressing of this puzzle, that it would result in such a happy outcome. And so thank you so much. I want to just take a couple of minutes to talk about some of the field implications of this research, and then some of the policy implications of this research that might be interesting to people watching this video. You know, in terms of the practice of international relations, there are a few things that I think are unanswered in the book that could lead to some interesting future research. You know, one of the things we realized is that territorial expansion didn't seem to be the tool of first resort for states, that they often tried other avenues to get what they wanted from their market power situation, whether they're preserving it or seeking it, and that those alternative strategies were nonviolent, but also failed. And I think it's an interesting puzzle to see like why those alternative strategies failed and put states in the position of seeking territorial expansion violently, and how a better addressing of those failures might create an opportunity to avoid conflict in the future. Second, I think it's important to identify the difference between seeking and preserving market power. That seeking out market power tends to have a narrower path, fewer options, whereas preserving market power tends to give states a broader array of foreign policy strategies. And that we may find that there are important differences in studying those two things separately. And third, we identified 3 cases that I think were very powerful for our argument, but in some ways they were constrained in the sense that all 3 cases would involve states that were very tightly connected to their firms. And it's a very interesting and very big question to start to investigate how market power politics is shaped, diluted, reshaped when states don't have as tight control over their firms, like an advanced industrialized democracy, for example, with a very complex economy, domestic economy. Those opportunities still exist, but now it opens up a huge hopefully not Pandora's box, but interesting box of questions about the domestic political economy of those states and how that domestic political economy affects the foreign policy strategies that emerge when market power opportunities do as well. Shifting to policy implications briefly, there are four that I think are interesting, some in the moment and some more durable. The first is that policymakers can seek to foster market complexity, right? And actually you see some of this going on right now in the United States with some legislation to bring semiconductor manufacturing back home, so to speak. That's clearly, a classic economist would say that's a very inefficient outcome and strategy. And so it's a trade-off between economic efficiency and foreign policy stability that is quite nuanced. And the more states are able to pursue market complexity, the more they may be able to avoid market power traps. The second is that it's clear that the current design of international institutions, particularly ones designed to prevent territorial disputes and resolve property rights in the international economy, are designed to work well in a competitive equilibrium world where everybody is taking the price and the markets are clearing. And they aren't particularly designed to address these problems that can occur in market power situations. Foreign policymakers should consider redesigning some of these institutions, either in small spaces or in large ways, to try and address these problems that can come up and solve the problem that earlier institutional designs just can't address. Third, we should explore creative solutions to sticky problems. We discuss in the book, at the end of the book, a case in the Caspian Sea where a redesigning of institutions actually resolves a territorial dispute peacefully. And in that case, the Russian approach was a common waters divided bottom strategy. And I wonder if a common waters divided bottom strategy might be an effective and creative approach to the South China Sea's disputes, for example. And then lastly, we need to understand how changes in market power can be dangerous, including the removal of market power. How precarious will Taiwan be in a world in which disruptions to the Taiwanese economy would not disrupt American and European economies? At the moment, that serves the role that Taiwan plays in the semiconductor industry, for example, but also in other economic dimensions. It's powerful and a powerful deterrent to mainland China's interests in a one China, right? And what happens to Taiwan and the willingness and interest of the Western world to defend Taiwan when that goes away is an interesting and powerful question that can't be examined without first understanding market power politics in general. With that, I think that hopefully that's enough to motivate some future research and or a willingness to read the book. And I'll just finish by saying thanks again. We just couldn't be happier.
On behalf of the jury, I would like to warmly congratulate the winners, Stephen and Mark, and thank all those who have joined the competition. The jury has also particularly appreciated 2 more books and would like to publish the rest of the shortlist. As a second, the book Partial Hegemony, Oil Politics and International Order by Jeff Corgan, published by Oxford University Press in 2021. And third, Why Nations Rise, Narratives and the Path to Great Power by Manjari Chatterjee Miller, also published by Oxford University Press in 2021. The 2022 competition confirms the liveliness of the IR scholarly community within the wider ACPR family, and then we look forward to another exciting Hedley Bull Prize competition next year.